RadioNOW 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.
Hello, I'm Emily Metheny, your host. This week, I had the opportunity to talk with Mary Robertson, director of the Indiana Cancer Consortium. We talked about what the HPV vaccine is and how it protects people from cancer. All right, so Mary, can you tell me a little bit about your organization?
Absolutely. The Indiana Cancer Consortium is a statewide coalition, and our mission is really just to reduce cancer in our state and reduce the cancer burden through prevention and cancer control, and we do that through both our individual and organizational members of our coalition, as well as a number of partners throughout the state. So we work to share resources, knowledge, and passion, and really work as that comprehensive vehicle to reduce cancer.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about some of the statistics? I was going through your website, and one that really struck me was 40% of all Hoosiers will have cancer at some point in their lifetime.
Absolutely. So cancer touches us all, which is why we like to say everyone is a stakeholder in cancer. So 2 out of 5 Hoosiers will develop cancer at some point in their lifetime. And that's a really startling statistic, considering that could very well be you or easily someone you know. So, cancer has a ripple effect. It's not just one person going through it. That's their friends, their family, their colleagues in the workplace. That's our whole community. So we should all be really invested in this. It's interesting because the top cancers in Indiana also reflect the top cancers throughout the United States. So, lung and bronchus, colorectal, breast, prostate, those are some of our top cancers. And so those can affect anyone. And cancer can happen to anyone at any age. Even though it's most common among the older population, it can happen to anyone.
Mm-hmm. And then one of the other statistics I saw was the rate for cancer overall is down about 18%. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so thankfully, due to research and our partners in the state, as a whole, we've been able to reduce Indiana's cancer rate, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we're doing well. Our cancer rates are still high. That just means we are going on a downward trend. However, we still are seeing a really significant burden among Indiana residents in certain populations, which means we just need a lot more targeted efforts to those certain populations among those certain cancer types. So, we have seen both our incidence rates, which means those that are finding out they have cancer for the first time, and also our mortality rate, which is that death rate. They have been increasing from 2008 to 2017. However, we still have a higher rate as a state than the national average. So we know that their work still needs to be done.
And what can we do to help share the message and help people really help you guys find and talk with these populations? What populations are they?
So among every population, obviously cancer occurs. However, we are seeing disparities in our state. So looking at age, nearly about 75% of all cancers were diagnosed among people ages 55 to 84. And so, while we say cancer can happen to anyone, we just need to make sure we're listening to our bodies, educating ourselves on the signs and symptoms, talking with our healthcare provider. But within those age groups, and we can look at other disparities in other populations, we really need to help and communicate and educate with. We can also see disparities among race. So the cancer incidence rate, so those that are finding cancer for the first time, that rate was higher for whites compared to African Americans in our state. However, the rate for African Americans from mortality is higher than whites. So what does that mean? That means we're seeing the African American population being affected more by death, and that is multifactorial, not due to just one reason. But some other populations, in the Hispanic and Latino community, cancer was the leading cause of death for females and the second leading cause of death for males in 2017. So even looking within each population, we can see that across all cancers and ethnicities, race, and ages, there's special populations. And what can we do? Having events and things like today, this interview, just reaching out to the community, connecting with community partners where these populations may frequent, and just getting the information out.
Mm-hmm. And if I am someone who does have cancer, how can I kind of overcome some of these disparities that affect me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very large challenge because there's no perfect answer. But something you can do is first, if you don't have a primary care provider, definitely find one and link with one. If you don't have one, a way you can get one is talking to your insurance. If you have insurance on their website, they can guide you to primary care providers that are in your state. If you don't have insurance and can't get a provider that way, we have lots of resources on indianacancer.org that can link you to resources such as finding links to that provider, getting ways to get screened, and other resources. So I honestly think the first step that you can do to help yourself, if you have cancer, if you have a loved one that has cancer, or you just want to become educated, visiting our website, indianacancer.org. We have a resources tab that can point you to everything you need to know about cancer and all the resources in your community. But I would say the largest factor and thing that you can do is making sure you are connecting with your healthcare provider and going in for your regular wellness visits, and they should be able to guide you to those, regular cancer screenings, those resources and advice, because they're going to know you the best personally.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then starting to transition, when it comes to cancer prevention, can you talk a little bit about what the HPV vaccine is?
Definitely. So I'm very excited to share news about the HPV vaccine. HPV, let's start with what HPV is to give some background. Mm-hmm. So HPV is the human papilloma virus, easily referred to HPV because it is a little bit long, but it's a really common virus that can lead to 6 types of cancer. So the HPV vaccine is the only vaccine that we have of cancer prevention. So the HPV vaccine is cancer prevention. It's the only thing right now that we know prevents cancer, besides some individual lifestyle choices such as, eating healthy and exercising. Mm-hmm. But HPV is so common. Nearly all men and women will at least get one type of HPV at some point in their lives. Not every strain of HPV leads to cancer, but several do. Mm-hmm. And thinking about in the perspective of the United States, nearly 8 million Americans are currently infected with some type of HPV. And then, about 14 million Americans, including teens, become infected each year. So thinking about that's a lot of chances to potentially be infected with cancer. Mm-hmm. And so this HPV vaccine prevents cancer by attacking those strains of HPV. So those 6 types of cancer that I mentioned, for women and females, that's cervix, vaginal and vulvar cancer. That's penile cancer in men, and then also for both men and women, that's cancer of the anus and the back of the throat, sometimes also referred to oropharyngeal cancer, and that can happen in both men and women.
Mm-hmm. And with the HPV vaccine, when is it? Who is it available to?
So the HPV vaccine is very common. All your doctor's offices should have it. We're talking at the health departments. This is stocked where all of your regular typical vaccinations for other routine vaccinations exist. So where you get your Tdap, your flu shots, it can be available. The HPV vaccine is definitely safe, effective, and it's recommended for both boys and girls. Usually starting at age 11 and 12 is the recommended age, but it's actually approved for ages 9 through 26. And then the recommendation is that if you're 27 to 45 years old, that you use just clinical decision making with your doctor, which means you just talk to them about if it's appropriate for you. Because as we know that this vaccine is most effective before you encounter HPV, right? So linking it in the mindset of COVID-19, we know it's most effective to have the vaccine before you actually encounter that virus, right, to protect you from the virus. So that's why it's so important to get vaccinated early. That way, before you even have the chance to be encountered with, any HPV infections.
Mm-hmm. And is this just one shot? Is this a series of shots? Do we need a booster later on in life? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. So it's actually a 2-dose series if you're receiving it at 11 and 12. So when you come in for that yearly wellness appointment, getting back to school, that's going to be at 11 or 12. and then you will come back a few months later for that second dose shot, and then you are done. There are no boosters. And we know its efficacy is very strong. That means we know that it works and that it's safe. We have more than 12 years of data. So you get that 2-dose vaccination series, and we know that you are protected for many, many years. So 2 doses, and then you're done.
Excellent. And if I want to learn more as a parent or as the actual patient, is there information on your website?
Yes, indianacancer.org. If you go to resources, right at the top, we have a bunch of toolkits related to HPV and one specifically for parents. And within that, we've also linked it to the CDC and a lot of other fact sheets. We have common questions that parents have about HPV and how to talk to your doctor about HPV for your children. So we do have a plethora of resources there. And I would really encourage that. There's the only one takeaway from this, call your doctor, make an appointment to get your child in with all their other routine vaccinations. If you have questions, reach out to your doctor and visit our website because there's a lot of data and information and good resources out there.
Mm-hmm. And as you said, this vaccine's been around for 12 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of data that we know that points to it being safe, long-lasting protection against HPV infection and HPV diseases. And we also have seen that since this vaccine has come out and been available, that HPV types that cause cancers, we've seen that those have dropped 86% among teen girls over the years. And we've also seen that the percentage of cervical precancers caused by HPV types that are most often linked to cervical cancer have always dropped by 40%. So not only are we seeing that it's safe, there aren't any reactions, we're also seeing that on the statistics side that these diseases are dropping, the cancer is going down. So, considering the impact of COVID-19, we know a lot of kids miss their annual wellness visits. And what happens at your annual wellness visit besides getting, your blood pressure checked and your general vitals? You're getting these vaccinations. So we know we've seen a huge drop, in Indiana among our youth. So we really want to encourage folks to get back and get this vaccine that will ultimately may save your children's lives.
And this is available to your children at, can you repeat the ages one more time for me, Mary?
Yes, absolutely. It's available to both boys and girls. You can get it as early as 9 years old, and it's approved for everyone 9 to 26, and then some clinical shared decision-making for those 27 to 45 years old.
Excellent. And it's a 2-dose vaccine, and any other questions you can talk, or just in general, talk to your doctor. Absolutely.
We encourage that all primary care providers and other health providers definitely encourage this with your routine vaccination. They'd be more than happy to ask questions. But if you need help how to approach your doctor and ask questions, we have those resources on our website at indianacancer.org.
Excellent. Mary, is there anything else you'd like to add about the Indiana Cancer Consortium or about the HPV vaccine?
Yeah, just to say the Indiana Cancer Consortium is here to serve our statewide community. We want to prevent cancer, detect cancer early, and help those going through treatment and survivorship. And what do we know best is prevention is best. So please go out and get your HPV vaccine for yourself, for your children, and for your community.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, comments, or topics you would like to hear more about, email me at emetheny, that's EMETHENY at radio-one.com, or you can follow me on Twitter at EmilyDoesVideo. Until then, have a great week.
Radio Now 100.9's Indy Connection with Emily Metheny.